Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Paramahansa Bhagavadgitacharya Ashtottara to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Bhagavadgitacharya Ashtottara to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We'll be on page 203 this time, Prabhu. Got it? 203? Uh-oh, that's the old book. Oh, yeah, leave it off there. Maybe you can put it, that's good. But does he have an old book? Let me see the margins on that book. Yeah. I think, well, you can just show it to me. Yeah, that's it. I think you're okay. Yeah, page 203. Thanks for coming, Jamal. We're on page 203. We know all the chanters we can get. You're one of them. 203. I'm going to wait. Now that I make my announcement, on this 14th day of June, I don't think I said on this 14th day of May yet. On this 14th day of May, 2019 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 4 entitled Transcendental Knowledge, text number 15, page 203. Evam gyatva kritam karma Purvair api mumukshubhihi Kuru karmaiva tasmatvam Purvai purvatadam kritam Evam gyatva kritam karma Purvai api mumukshubhihi Kuru karmaiva tasmatvam Purvai purvatadam kritam. Evam gatva kritam karma. Purvair api mumukshubhihi. Kuru karmaiva tasmatvam. Purvai purvatadam kritam. Evam gatva kritam karma. Purvair api mumukshubhihi. Kuru karmaiva tasmatvam. Purvai purvatadam kritam. Evam gatva kritam karma. Purvai api mumukshubhihi. Kuru karmaiva tasmatvam. Purvai purvatadam kritam. Okay. Evam, thus, gatva, knowing well, kritam, was performed, karma, work, purvai, by past authorities, api, indeed, mumukshubhihi, who attained liberation. Kuru, just perform, karma, prescribed duty, eva, certainly, tasmat, therefore, tvam, you, purvai, by the predecessors, purvatadam, in ancient times, kritam, as performed. Translation. Krishna says, all the liberated souls in ancient times acted with this understanding of my transcendental nature. Therefore you should perform your duty following in their footsteps. Before we read the purport, I'm going to read the previous verse because Krishna refers to it. There is no work that affects me, nor do I aspire for the fruits of action. One who understands this truth about me also does not become entangled in the fruit of reactions of work. Purport to text 15. There are two classes of men. Some of them are full of polluted material things within their hearts, and some of them are materially free. Krishna consciousness is equally beneficial for both of these persons. Those who are full of dirty things can take to the line of Krishna consciousness for a gradual cleansing process. Following the regulative principles of devotional service. Those who are already cleansed of the impurities may continue to act in the same Krishna consciousness so that others may follow their exemplary activities and thereby be benefited. Foolish persons or neophytes in Krishna consciousness often want to retire from activities without having knowledge of Krishna consciousness. Arjuna's desire to retire from activities on the battlefield was not approved by the Lord. One need only know how to act. To retire from the activities of Krishna consciousness and to sit aloof, making a show of Krishna consciousness, is less important than actually engaging in the field of activities for the sake of Krishna. Arjuna is here advised to act in Krishna consciousness, following in the footsteps of the Lord's previous disciples, such as the sun god Vivasvan, as mentioned herein before. The Supreme Lord knows all his past activities, as well as those of persons who acted in Krishna consciousness in the past. Therefore, he recommends the acts of the sun god, who learned this art from the Lord some millions of years before. All such students of Lord Krishna are mentioned here as past liberated persons engaged in the discharge of duties allotted by Krishna. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So this is all about karma, this section of the Bhagavad Gita. And karma has different meanings. The general meaning in English, it's an English word by now. English is like a big vacuum cleaner. It'll take in the French, the Spanish, the German, the Latin, anything that comes in, and the Sanskrit. So there's so many words that have become English: yoga, karma, ashram. I was surprised years ago. I've been doing this editing work for so long that even before there was any digital references, I had to have an unabridged dictionary. So I had one of those big, remember those big ones, like 1,000-page, weighs 25 pounds. So I had one of those in Miami, and I lugged it all the way out here. And one time I was dealing with words that, just like this, that have entered into the English language from the Sanskrit. So I said, well, let me just check. I looked up the word Kshatriya. Kshatriya, we just read about the 4 Varnas, right? The Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras. Every one of them was in that unabridged dictionary. They were spelled English, S-H-U-D-R-A, like that, kids. Of course, they're not. They weren't in common use, but even those words were somehow being used because of the English occupying India. They sucked in so many words, because there are intellectuals who also lived in India, became Sanskrit scholars, even from England. And that, in fact, the dictionary that we mostly use was written by an Englishman, Monier Williams. That's not an Indian name, Monier Williams. It's like a French-English name. Anyway, so the word karma needs to be understood in the context in which the Bhagavad Gita is speaking about it. So karma means several things, even in the Bhagavad Gita. It means just activity. Karma means activity. Or it means activity that's according to the Vedic injunctions, following the rules. In other words, approved, pious activity. Activity that'll move you along either to the heavenly planets or, better situation in this world. That's another meaning. Karma, also in the way in which it is used in America and in the West, means the results of your activities. Good karma, bad karma. What goes around comes around. That idea has entered in. And so that's also being mentioned here. Now, what Krishna is saying here is that he created, in text 13, he's talking about how he organized society. And he created these 4 varnas. Now, there's varna and there's ashram. Varna means a certain station in life that you act. I remember as a kid in high school, we all took aptitude tests to see, what track we should go. Should they kind of ease us toward a vocational track, or is this person going to be a teacher or whatever like that? That's reflective of what Krishna is mentioning here. Chatur varnya maya srishtam. I created it, Krishna says, because he wants human society to be organized in such a way for the ultimate spiritual benefit of everyone. The varnas don't really have much meaning without the ashrams. That's why it's called varna ashram. Ashram also is another English word, and it means literally in the context of varna ashram, a spiritual order, meaning that a certain stage of life that you go through in order to become progressively more spiritually advanced. In this case, Krishna conscious is it. So the children, generally the boys, would be sent, young boys, to a Guru Kula. If you read the Krishna book, Krishna's Leela, he went to the Guru Kula, and so did Lord Chaitanya. The Guru Kula is the place where the Guru lives. And the boys are studying under the teacher. He should be a Brahmin, well-versed. They study Sanskrit, logic, grammar first, and then they learn other things too. Krishna went to the Guru Kula. He studied 64 arts. 64 arts, beginning with singing. If I read this list, you would be amazed. Geology, how to color drinks, non-alcoholic drinks, obviously. Hairdressing, all kinds of things. How to do puzzles. 64 arts. Usually takes days or weeks in order to learn them. One day, one art. He and Balaram were there together. But he went to the Gurukul to show, as he explains here, actually in the 3rd chapter, previous chapter, if I didn't do it, the whole world would imitate me, because whatever a leading person does, the people in general follow. Everyone looks for an exemplar. That's why it's such a disaster to have our present president, because he just gives a really bad example, and it's not even just in America, all over the world. It's a disaster. But when Krishna installed Yudhishthira, this is why he was so eager to have the Pandavas become the leaders, because they're virtuous. They're all, pure devotees of Krishna. And they have the benefits of the people at heart. The ideal in India to this day is Ram Raj, right? Ram Raja. There's a king who has absolutely no material desire. He's not lording it over the people. His every activity, as Krishna's is here, is for the benefit of the people in general, because he's self-satisfied. In other words, when God is in charge, it's not like smite him here and wipe those out. That image of God is not God. That's some concoction. God only has the welfare of us in mind, because we're part and parcel. We're his intimate friends ultimately, and servants like that. So that's why he says in this chapter, whenever there's adharma, irreligion takes over, and society is in chaos, as yada yadahi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. Oh, Bharata means descendant of Bharat. Arjuna and his brothers were descendants of a great forebear named Bharata Maharaj, who was the son of Rishabdev. So he's known as Bharata with a long A. So he says, whenever and wherever there is too much adharma in the world, then I advent myself. Now, on another level, he only advents himself once in a day of Brahma. But he'll advent as he is, as Krishna with the flute and everything. But he has many expansions that he can advent. And even in this age, Krishna, we're not going to see, if we go to Vrindavan, we won't see Krishna cavorting in the forest, unless we have transcendental vision. But the holy name has come as an avatar. The holy name, to purify us and to reestablish Dharma. So Krishna comes or sends his representative, he appears in some way, in order to combat all this adharma. And therefore the next verse says he protects the innocent, his devotees. He helps to wipe out the out-and-out miscreants and atheists. And he reestablishes Dharma, millennium after millennium. So that's work. He's doing things, right? If you read the 10th canto, he's doing so many things. There's the Leela in Vrindavan, but then there's all of that Dwarka Leela and things. And you read the Mahabharata, he's doing so many things. But he's not affected by it, like we are. Because there's no material desire. He's doing it completely out of care and compassion for us. And when we understand that activity, that fact, there's no work that affects me, nor do I aspire the fruits of action. When one understands this truth about me, also doesn't become entangled. Because it's implied here that to understand means that you also work in that way. That you're working for the pleasure, for the aspirations to fulfill the desires of Krishna. Those are pristine desires. What does he want? Okay, so first of all, he wants us to come close to him, to purify our existence. Prabhupada begins this purport, all things about purification. It's all about dirty things, right? It means that different modes of nature. Those who are in the lower modes of nature, one of the very results of being in the mode of ignorance is laziness. Laziness equals dirtiness. Because it takes effort to keep clean, right? As soon as you say, the heck with it, tomorrow, I'll take a bath tomorrow, These socks are clean, I've only been wearing them for 3 days, that type of thing. Laziness equals dirt. And that also accrues in our heart. So there are prescribed duties. If you want to progress in life, that means a process of purification. One of the names or the epithets, that you mentioned, the sadhus and the gurus and those, are the patita pavana. Right, we sing it every morning. If you're ever here early in the morning, not really early, but 7:00, 7:15. Usually at the end of the song, we have 2 songs we sing to the guru. One is at 4:30 and the other is at 7:30. So usually, Jaya Patita Pavana. How does it go? Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Patita Pavana, Prabhupada. I don't know. We have to be singing the song in order to. But we said. So what does that really mean? Getting the meaning is like a long way toward advancing. So patit means fallen. We're all fallen in this world. You can use almost like an image of you falling from the spiritual world because you don't deserve to be there anymore. Just like you fall out of the civil society, you go to the prison. It's a kind of a fall, the status is lower. So we're fallen, and the spiritual authorities who give us instruction, give us their association, they're pavana. Pavana means purifiers. The purifiers of the fallen, because being fallen means you've got impurities in your heart, and you forget Krishna, and you become self-concerned, and you suffer. It's all due to impurity. So Krishna consciousness can be entirely understood in terms of a purification process. That means that our original state is one of purity, and we become unclean by forgetting Krishna and trying to dominate this world and enjoy it. That's a kind of a dirtiness of the heart. The pure heart is filled with love and compassion and kindness. That's purity. And sociopathy is just the opposite. If someone becomes so selfish and so self-centered that he has no feeling for other people. This is a great distortion and impurity in the heart. So the process of Krishna consciousness means, it's just like this great analogy, it's there in the Shastra, how the sun, by nature the sun gives off this light and this heat. If there's a dirty place on the earth, a dog has passed urine or something, if the sun shines on it long enough, it'll become pure. It'll dry everything up and become pure. The sun doesn't become impure, but the force of the sun is a purifying factor. So the force of Krishna is by nature the purest of the pure. In the 10th chapter, right after these 4 essential verses, just to let you know, 10, 8, 9, 10, and 11 are said to be the essence of the Gita. And then Arjuna, he answers Krishna. Krishna says in the 10th chapter, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matraksarvam bhavartade. I'm God. Everything emanates from me. You see? I emanate everything emanates from me. He says it twice, once from his point of view and one from our point of view. Because we know about the everything, but we don't know about God. He says, oh, that everything that you're talking about, that's from me. And first he says, I've created everything. And then those who know this, the wise, they worship me with all their hearts. And what's the main way they do it? They glorify me amongst each other, together. It's Sankirtan. Matchitta, they put their minds on me. Bodhiyantak parasparam. And they're always glorifying each other, glorifying me with each other. And in this way they're enjoying pleasure. Matchitta, bodhiyantak parasparam. Katayantaschaman tushyanti chadamanti. Tushyanti means satisfaction. And ramanti means literal spiritual pleasure by glorifying Krishna together. Then he says, for them, Tesham Satadiyuktanam, who are always linked to me by this glorification process, I give them more and more intelligence by which they can proceed toward me. We should never forget, Krishna is in our heart. He's just waiting to enlighten us. We can't perceive him directly, so those who are still interested, he comes outside in the form of this book, Bhagavad Gita, and guru, sadhu, teachers who can speak the word that Krishna is going to speak. He's trying to do it from inside, but we're too covered over. Eventually we can also be guided directly by Krishna in our heart. So he says, out of my compassion for them, I destroy the dense darkness in their heart with the shining lamp of knowledge. These are the 4 verses. Then Arjuna, who's listening to all this, he says, oh, now I understand. Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavan, Purusham Shashvatam, Divyam Adidevam, Ajam Vibhum. This is a very famous verse. You are the Param Brahma. You are the supreme absolute truth. Param Dhamma, the supreme abode. Pavitram, Paramam Bhavan. Here's this word Pavitra. Patita Pavana. And Pavitram comes from the same root. You are the supreme purifier. You're the supremely puriful one. You're just like the sun, and anyone who comes in contact with you becomes purified. That's the whole process of devotional service. Somehow to stay linked up with Krishna, especially through sound, through the holy name, but also by using all your senses. We see the deity, we taste the prasadam, we hear, of course, and even the touch, you take that flame when it comes around, and of course there's so many fragrances, the flowers and the incense. And your active senses, you do something with your hands, clean the temple, do something, somehow or other, paint pictures, write something. Somehow keep yourself engaged in experiencing the glorification of Krishna or making glorification of Krishna. And by this linkage, you get more and more pure. And what happens? you start to have true attraction to Krishna, affection for Krishna, and ultimately love for Krishna, which is our natural state. That's the whole process. So back to our verse. If we truly understand Krishna's work in this world, how he stays aloof, and we work with that understanding as a sacrifice for him, for his purposes, we also stay aloof. We get rid of all our karma, bad and good. We don't want any kind of karma in the sense of reactions. And none of our activities are karmic in the sense of being fruitive. They're not motivated by our own desire. They're motivated by our desire to fulfill our duties to Krishna or to act in love for Krishna. No karma, and it's all, the results is all good, and this mumukshubi. That's the first benefit, is that you're liberated. Liberated means you don't have any desire to enjoy this world. That's a preliminary liberation, meaning that you're not coming back. It's not that you disappear in a puff of smoke. It's that you live in this world, and you're allotted time. We all have a timer, built-in timer in the body, And I use the timer a lot at home, So many minutes between when I have to stand up and walk around, when I sit too long, so many minutes to boil the water and everything. So the body also has a timer. Okay, but I'm not the body, How can I get the best next situation? Well, mumukshibi, by getting liberated from the material body altogether and being reinstated in our eternal, original spiritual body, which is eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. Satchidananda. That's what it means to go back to Godhead. And the entire process means dovetailing, becoming Krishna conscious and using all our senses in that consciousness to serve Krishna's desire. And we find ourselves completely satisfied and happy, free from fear and anxiety. What a boon that is. So much of the boons are negative. Liberation. Well, liberation means you're tied up somewhere. If you get liberation, freedom from fear, freedom from anxiety. What to speak of the positive of actually tasting transcendental bliss. Maduram, maduram, babodasya bhavo. Sweet, sweet. Forgive me, this is one of my Ekadashi classes when I kind of get a little more talkative than usual. So that's why I'm going off into different directions. So, purva by purva. So he's saying that others in previous times have acted this way. Now, let's just go through this purport, because it's all about purification. There are two classes of men. Men means people, okay, human beings. Some of them are full of polluted material things within their hearts, and some of them are materially free. And of course, there's a whole spectrum of those who are getting free. Krishna consciousness is equal beneficial for both of them. In other words, there's no restriction in taking up Krishna consciousness, whereas so many other things there are. You want to be a lawyer? Fine. But first you got to pass the bar, you got to pass the bar. And if you have to be able to get into being tested for the bar. In other words, a whole bunch of things you have to do in order to qualify to become a lawyer. If you want to be a doctor, there's even more difficult things to do. In other words, everything requires a preliminary activity. If you want to become a bhakta, no preliminary activity. Here, walk in the door, chant a little Hare Krishna. It takes about, 2 minutes, 1 minute to learn. If you can't learn it, that's all right. Read it. It's up there. That's the first step. Huge step. It's a huge step. Krishna consciousness, let's make a contrast. Material consciousness and material life means a lot of hard work and suffering for a little bit of pleasure, flickering pleasure. Just to live in this world, a decent life, is so hard now just to make enough to stay off the street. And, who can live in San Francisco or L.A. or New York anymore? Apartment in L.A., $2,000 minimum just to live there decently. So much anxiety and work just to get the roof over your head. And then so there's a lot of work, a lot of anxiety, and a lot of pain just to get a little pleasure. Krishna consciousness, yes, there's some austerity, no meat eating. If you're too accustomed to that, that can be giving up drugs and alcohol. That can be a big thing. So yes, there's austerity, but the payoff is like huge. A little bit of austerity comparatively with a huge payoff. Material life is a whole lot of angst and struggle for a little bit of pleasure, which is flickering and here today and gone tomorrow, and the source of your misery. That's another thing. All those pleasures we have, Krishna says right here in the 5th chapter. That's the source of your misery. Yehi sangsparjita bhoga dukkha yona evate, which means the enjoyment you experience from contacting the senses with their sense objects, otherwise known as sense gratification, is the very source of your misery. Dukkha yoni means the source of misery. And it has a beginning and an end. That's one of the most miserable parts of it. It's all anticipation. What is that verse? Kutrashisha Shruti Sukha Mrigatrishni Rupa. This is the Prahlad Maharaj. Kutrashisha Shruti Sukha Mrigatrishni Rupa. He's saying that material pleasure is, what's the use of all these aspirations for material pleasure? Kutrasha Shruti Sukha. Most of the sukha is in hearing about it, is all the anticipation. I give the example, a moderately middle class, let's call it middle class, because there isn't anyone middle class anymore, living in Alabama, and they've heard about, they see on the TV and they've heard about Disneyland, but they can't afford to go to Disneyland. I mean, they got a family, they got 3 kids, 4 kids, but they'll save up for it. The guy works hard in the steel mill or whatever they were doing in Alabama, and maybe the woman has a job, so they save up year after year. They got the flyers, they got the everything, and finally they can go. They get a camper and they drive across. It's cheaper than everybody flying, and they go, and the kids are all getting into it. They got their flyers and they got their Mickey Mouse hats and whatever. And finally they get to Disneyland. Oh, there's Fantasyland. I've never been, but I know I've seen Fantasyland and this land and that land, and and then of course it costs like $70 a ticket. I mean, it's very expensive. That's okay. We saved up, and after an hour the kids are restless, and they got to go to the bathroom, and feeding everybody, that's another $100, and then okay, but we're having fun. They get on the rise. Oh, the kid smiles. Let's take the picture. Let's take the videos from her. And then it's over. After a day or something, the whole hotel, maybe 2 days, Back we go to Alabama, And what we got is the memories, we got the videos, right? But the kids grow up, and then after a while they couldn't care less about Disneyland, So what was it? It was a whole lot of anticipation, hearing about it, thinking about it, dreaming about it. Then a little, short time of actually enjoying it, trying to have a peak experience. And then the kid gets sick, it throws up. And then going back and then thinking about it and looking at the video. That's it as a human being, And then it's gone. It's 1 year, 3 years, 10 years in the past, and a whole other things happen. And that's material pleasure. Shruti Sukha. And he gives this perfect phrase, Mriga Trishni Rupa. You know what Mriga Trishni means? Sanskrit is such a great language. What the deer thirsts after. Mriga is a deer, and Trishni means thirst. A mirage. A deer thirsts after mirage, and a foolish deer will run into the desert or something, In other words, that's what this world is all about. Everything from the smallest little, thing that the little kid wants his mother to buy, up to the big movers and shakers, the billionaires trying to, conquer countries and everything else. It's all a big mirage. It is all a big mirage. Just think of history. Prabhupada pointed out what happened to the Roman Empire, what happened to the German Empire, what happened to the Ottoman Empire. They stayed for some time. There was a whole lot of things going on, and then it just collapsed and finished and blown away. So we want to become cleansed. So Krishna consciousness is good for everybody. For those who are advanced, yes, you can continue to practice Krishna consciousness and become really pure and experience the higher levels of Krishna. And if you're just starting, hey, just one day, one mantra is so powerful. There's a verse in one name. There's a verse in the 6th canto. I forget the Sanskrit. It's just one line in a verse that says, if you hear one name of Krishna, carefully, you'll be liberated. Doesn't even say you have to chant it. Usually it says if you chant once, you get rid of more sins than you could possibly commit. In other words, it's a concession. Krishna has come for this age. Chant my name, and you make advance. People don't want to chant. So Krishna consciousness is good for the beginners, and it's good for the advanced. It's not good to try to retire from activities. The whole idea is that the karma, just like the kama, okay, there's two words, kama and karma, right? So kama means lust, material desire. Now, in the end of the previous chapter, Krishna was speaking about how this is our real enemy in this world. Arjuna wanted to know, how come we're impelled to act in ways that even we know are bad for us? I used to smoke cigarettes when I was a kid. It's like 60 years since I smoked a cigarette. But, I got into it because everyone was doing it. And then after a while, I need a cigarette. And I realized this isn't good for me. I could feel, because I was into athletics, I couldn't run as fast. I was feeling pains in the chest. I smoked for about 8 years. And, but, when you need a cigarette, then, it's just like, okay, well, that's what I do. In other words, it's covering your intelligence. And then after a while, people are so foolish, we're going to put a phrase on there. We're going to put a little warning right on the package. You remember when that came in? It was the early 60s, I think. And there it is. Warning, cigarette smoking is hazardous to your health. Well, that's interesting. What is that? That's the end of the 3rd chapter. That's the karma. He says it takes over the senses, the mind, and intelligence. Different places. Sometimes it just be an intellectual thing. There's no question of it being a physical addiction. But you're addicted to a certain kind of, ballet or something, In other words, you're not happy unless you have that. And so that's the material world. There's a whole series of things that you've experienced in this lifetime that give you pleasure, that you want to have again, but you can't anymore because they're not available or you can't do it. But the desire is there in the mind. And that brings you back again to try to enjoy it in the next life. And in your activities of doing all those things, you're violating the natural laws, you're committing what we call sins, and that therefore you have to suffer from that. It's not a free lunch. There's all rules and regulations. So Krishna consciousness teaches us the process of Krishna consciousness. There's the philosophy and then there's the process. How to act in such a way that the philosophy makes more sense to us and we begin to experience some of the benefits of Krishna consciousness. And the process means there's things to do with your senses, your knowledge acquiring senses, such as the eyes and the ears, and so on, etc. And your doing senses, this is the hands and the feet, and especially the voice, what you say. Your whole consciousness is formulated by what you hear and what you say, what you read and what you write. Think about it. So much of our consciousness is that what you choose to hear, because everything becomes habitual. I can't even imagine. The music. Is it music? The guy's driving around in his car and it's summertime and everything. It's a big booming. It just sounds like noise to me. But somebody is getting off on that. He's become addicted to that. But that's the mode of ignorancy. Everything is in the modes. There's mode of ignorancy music, mode of goodness music, mode of passion music. And that will affect your conscience at the time of death and bring you back. So it's a process of cleansing, and we should try to understand what karma is. This is the next verse. Why don't we read the next verse if there's no discussion? What is karma? What is a karma? What is vikarma? Text 16. Ready? Kim karma kim karmeti. Try it again. Kim karma kim karmeti. Kavayopyatra mohitaha. Mohitaha. Tatte karma pravakshyami. Yagyatva mokshase shubhat. Even the intelligent are bewildered in determining what is action and what is inaction. Now I shall explain to you what action is, knowing which you shall be liberated from all misfortune. Purport. Action in Krishna consciousness has to be executed in accord with the examples of previous bona fide devotees. This is recommended in the 15th verse. 15th verse, that was the last verse. Yes, the ancient times, the liberated souls who did this in ancient times. You should emulate them. Now I shall explain to you what action is, knowing which you shall be liberated from all misfortune. Purport. Action in Krishna consciousness has to be executed in accord with the examples of previous bona fide devotees. This is recommended in the 15th verse. Why such action should not be independent will be explained in the text to follow. To act in Krishna consciousness, one has to follow the leadership of authorized persons who are in a line of disciplic succession, as explained in the beginning of this chapter. The system of Krishna consciousness was first narrated to the sun god. The sun god explained it to his son, Manu. Manu explained it to his son, Ikshwaku. And the system is current on this earth from that very remote time. Therefore, one has to follow in the footsteps of previous authorities in the line of disciplic succession. Otherwise, even the most intelligent men will be bewildered regarding the standard actions of Krishna consciousness. For this reason, the Lord decided to instruct Arjuna in Krishna consciousness directly. Because of the direct instruction of the Lord to Arjuna, anyone who follows in the footsteps of Arjuna is certainly not bewildered. It is said that one cannot ascertain the ways of religion simply by imperfect experimental knowledge. Actually, the principles of religion can only be laid down by the Lord himself. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. No one can, Bhagavatam 6.3.19. No one can manufacture a religious principle by imperfect speculation. One must follow the footsteps of great authorities like Brahma, Shiva, Narada, Manu, the Kumaras, Kapila, Prahlad, Bhishma, Shukadev Goswami, Yamaraj, Janaka, and Bali Maharaj. By mental speculation, one cannot ascertain what is religion or self-realization. Therefore, out of causeless mercy to his devotees, the Lord explains directly to Arjuna what action is and what inaction is. Only action performed in Krishna consciousness can deliver a person from the entanglement of material existence. So, in the last chapter, Krishna says there really is no such thing as a karma. You can't do nothing at any time. Even if you're sitting there perfectly still, holding your breath, the mind is active. The mind is also an actor, you see. So we're forced to act according to the modes that we're in. So, but we do have some free will. We could decide to go here or decide to go there. And sometimes we act against our inclinations, just like Arjuna. Arjuna is a Kshatriya, and in this particular instance, he wants to leave the battlefield because all of his loved ones are on the other side. He doesn't want to have any part of it. He's acting on the basis of emotion, right? So, the whole question that Bhagavad Gita is spoken in order to defeat that idea and to have him do his duty, meaning to fight in the battle, even though he doesn't want to. He does it because Krishna wants him to, ultimately. That's bhakti, you see. And ultimately, it's exalted. Everybody who's killed on the battlefield goes back to Godhead because they're killed with Krishna in the presence. So it's auspicious, even though externally it looks horrible. And at the end of the battle with all these thousands and millions of corpses, and not only human beings, but think of all the dead horses and the elephants, and it was a bloodbath. Yudhishthira was inconsolable. He was very disturbed. If you go to the Bhagavatam, it's what he had done. So he could have the kingdom, everyone has to die. So again, someone had to speak to him and set him right. And you know who it is? Bhishma Dev. Krishna just stands next to Bhishma Dev. As Bhishma Dev is on this battlefield on the bed of arrows, he was given a blessing that he wouldn't die unless he himself decided to die. So even though he's shot through with all these arrows, he's not dying. And he's together enough to speak for hours, days really, in the Mahabharata, instructing Yudhishthira how to, in principles of running the kingdom, and encouraging him that now you have to take up for the benefit of the people in general. So that is known as akarma, means not that you don't do anything, but you don't do anything selfishly or fruitively. Your activities are all in Krishna consciousness, with Krishna in mind and for Krishna. Then that's called a karma, and it brings you to a state of naishkarmya. Means that you're not accruing any new karma, good or bad, that'll bring you back, and you're getting rid of all your old karma. That's how we want to live in this world. And it's possible to do it if you're trained right. If you're acting according to the, as mentioned here, the model and the instructions of the previous acharyas and previous devotees. Now, just a quick note here about this. Who's really setting up dharma or religion? One cannot ascertain the ways of religion simply by imperfect experimental knowledge. In other words, you can't create a religion of your own. Although people are doing it all the time. On the internet, there's probably 100 religions created every day. Like Scientology. And I'm not going to name any others, I'll get in trouble. But there's a lot of this creation of religion, and if you're charismatic, and you can, fool a lot of people. So, this phrase, Dharmam to Sakshat Bhagavat Pranitam, this is spoken by Yamaraj in the 6th canto. And what he's saying there is, Dharma, real religion, can only be directly spoken by Bhagavan, the Lord himself. And that's what Bhagavad Gita is, real Dharma. Now, other religions may claim to have direct, access to the Lord. And this is one of the problems, Once you get some charismatic who's able to convince enough people that I'm God or I'm channeling God, you can create a lot of havoc in society, for his own personal reasons, right? So Dharma is talking about. So how do I know who's really channeling God and that he's giving me the real thing? That's where this list comes in, called the Mahajans, those who are not creating religion, but they're giving religion as it is, because they're directly in touch with Krishna. It begins with Brahma. This sampradaya, this disciplic succession that we're experiencing now with Srila Prabhupada, going back to Bhaktisiddhanta and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, all the way back through Lord Chaitanya, back to Krishna. That's called the Brahma Sampradaya. Krishna's first. He's always the source of everything. But he spoke, or enlightened in the heart, Brahma with the Vedas. And Brahma in turn passed it on to Narada, who passed it on to Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva wrote it all down, wrote the Bhagavatam. So it came down from him, from Vyasadeva to Shukadev, his son. And then from there he spoke it, down, down, down. It's all coming. Distorted. That's the whole thing, as it is. And so that's where real Dharma comes from. And the simple, it's spoken in Bhagavatam in many different places, what real Dharma is. Dharma, in the simplest definition, are those activities which evoke your actual bhakti for Krishna, your loving feeling toward Krishna, your service attitude. Savaipungsang paro dharma yato bhaktir adhokshajay. But he qualifies it. Well, is it real dharma? Is it real bhakti? Then it has to be totally ahaituki. Ahaituki means without any fruit of desire, akarmic. You're not doing it, God, give me my daily bread. That's a good start. At least you're going to church. But that's not bhakti. It's not even true dharma, but it's at least getting you toward that point. But this verse says, no, it must be an activity that evokes your devotion for the Lord. That means that is based on activity where you hear about and you serve and you understand the form and qualities and pastimes. Otherwise, you can't love anybody. If you don't understand their name, form, qualities, and activities, there's no question of love. So this is my idea of an impersonal absolute. You may have fear, but you're not going to have love. I'm sorry. It's just a fact of life. So that is what the Bhagavatam is all about, and the Bhagavad Gita. Is that it presents Krishna as he is, in all his glory, with the wonderful form, qualities, pastimes, activities, expansions, everything, and philosophy. And it gives us a means, a very practical means, by which we can realize that in our relationship with Krishna. That's what the value of this society is. It gives one a clue and an opportunity to achieve the ultimate goal of life in this lifetime. Or to move toward that direction, understanding fully that nothing is lost, and we may come back again, although to come back to this earth again, not a good idea. We should try to go back to God Everyone in this room can go back to Godhead if we want it enough and we're ready to practice enough. Beginning with chanting the holy name. Okay, any questions or discussion? This is my Ekadashi class. I get very talkative because I'm not eating anything. So, all right.
If you become liberated, right?
Yeah.
In this lifetime, how many people can become liberated because you always go back to the world?
Yeah, but we all live in the world, but how are we related? You know, the question is, are we of the world? Are we really entangled in this world in terms of being forced or to pay attention to it and forgetting Krishna? Because the way Krishna consciousness trains us is to see the things of this world in relation to Krishna. It's not that the things of this world have to distract us from Krishna. This whole material world is one big distraction. That's what it's meant for, because we didn't want to think of Krishna. But as soon as we have the clue that we do want to think of Krishna, then he's ready to help us. So you can see Krishna. Now, there's certain activities and experiences and things we do want to avoid in this world, because they can't be integrated into Krishna consciousness. Even though everything is related to Krishna, still, some things are directly related and directly remind us of Krishna. And those are the things we have to maximize in our lives. So that even when we are around things that don't directly remind us of Krishna, we can still remember him in the ways that he explains in Bhagavad Gita. I mean, Bhumar Apa Olo Vayo. I am the source of all the earth, water, fire, air, and space in this world, including your mind, intelligence, and your ego. So how can you forget Krishna? Easy. By forgetting that and becoming involved in the interactions of these things. So therefore he says, okay, the light of the sun, that's me. You know, I'm the taste of water, I'm the light of the sun and the moon, I'm the ability in man, I'm intelligence, I'm charisma, I'm strength. So if you just remember those few verses, when do we not experience one or more of those things? So this is rudimentary remembrance of Krishna. But like worshipping the deity, seeing Krishna like that, hearing about him, you know, and his philosophy, hearing Bhagavad Gita, that's much more direct. And those things stay with you. We're meant to see ourselves in the world through the eyes of Shastra, through the eyes of Bhagavad Gita. It's meant to be a transformative experience. But it requires a certain amount of sincerity and determination, because we're so conditioned. We're so habituated to thinking and acting in other ways, in material ways, that it's hard to move in the right direction. But that's what this society is for, to help us. Now I have to all glories to Srila Prabhupada. We'll reconvene tomorrow, same time.